I think that's a good place for us to start and then to move forward. Um, yeah, so David, you and I decided to do a program together, which had been a program I had been doing with people in order to overcome diabetes, all of these different illnesses, autoimmune, you know, like all these different things. And in the process of doing that, and then moving from Hawaii and all of these things, that it became a different thing. And you are really in the transition, like you've seen that kind of happen. Like I said that out front, we're not here to cure your body, but illness and wellness can't exist in the same space. And so if we give your body the ingredients to be well, that's just like light and dark don't exist in the same space. Light is always going to illuminate. So it's the same kind of principle. And then from what I think happened is you and Di kind of talked, and Di said, "Oh, I want some of that." And is that right, Diana?
No, it's just from what David's been saying on the fly in the meetings, you know.
Oh,
It wasn't a
I
separate
thought you had actually
conversation.
had a conversation.
No,
Okay.
but how you, the frequency that I'm getting from David, it's like my avatar goes, ah, I want that too.
Oh, I see.
I want that too. Yeah, no, it's all been like energetic.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to me. And I love that. And I'm not going to tangent off. I'm going to control my tangents today as much as I can. But that's a beautiful thought
Good
about
luck.
what's that?
Good luck.
She knows me so well. Well, let's just say this. It says something about how we influence. And we're going to talk today about influences here on the earth plane, this dimension, right? We're going to talk about those influencers because that's a big part of this. So when Diana, when you ask me then, well, what about doing this? I thought about it, and what I immediately came to is I don't have the program that is your program right now. I knew that. And so that's what we're doing today, a program that doesn't exist yet. And I'm gonna hone it in or fine tune it. The accumulation of today, what my desire is that it hones in on this idea of and why both of you are together a little bit now, well, for many reasons, but Diana, you had this sense of, do I have what it takes to actually do this? Would you like to say that in your own words?
What's my fear factor?
Yeah, the willpower thing, you know.
Yeah, exit. Yeah. I have a lot of trepidation, or I did. It's lessening now.
Good.
About whether I could actually do some of the things that you said, David, which are the bone broth fast and the salt water fast. I'm like, I look at myself and I go, I don't know. But that's basically it, you know.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then David, you are at a point in your program where you have a life that is structured around meetings and social events that you've described, and you know, am I right in that that's a happy thing for you to go to these events, share with people, share the wine, share the food? It's like it's a moment, right?
Yeah.
Right? Would you like to say that in your own words? And this pivotal point, like I keep calling this the most important part of your program, because it's one thing to have enough willpower, which you did and you do, to do the program to take you to a place. And then it's a completely other thing to have it gain the momentum of its own so that you maintain what you've done. And so that's how this kind of fits together. So I want to make sure that today, I mean, I'm going to be talking about gamma point and purposes in this and all that, but what I want to make sure comes across is some soothing and some answers to those two places. So I'll let you say kind of how that, where you are and how that is for you right now.
Yeah, as I reflect on you're asking me, what my experience has been along the way, I'm realizing at the outset, I definitely had some of my own version of fear and trepidation. And it was mostly because of what I would call the ignorance factor. I've never done this before. I have no clue what I'm getting into. And I don't know if I'm signing up for something that's more than I can actually execute on or deliver on. What I've loved about how the process has unfolded is you have allowed for an incredible amount of in the moment flexibility, spontaneity, and you keep helping me to reframe that this is not about me doing anything perfectly. It's about, let's go on a journey together and I'll be your guide and you'll be like the guinea pig. And we're going to discover, how does your body, want to operate? What kind of foods does it like? How does it respond to these kinds of foods, these kinds of intermittent fasts, these kinds of block fasts? And along the way, man, it's just been this amazing learning experience for me about my own body, about, this disorder called cancer, and that it's inspired me to go do some of my own research. And then I bring it back and you and I have a conversation and like magic happens and I get even more insights, and it seems to be inspiring you to like morph your program even farther.
Sure.
So it's been this incredible synergistic coming together that is not about, like you said, making these gigantic compromises in my lifestyle or being perfect or I don't know, having these rigid guidelines or anything like that. It's been a nice surprise about how much easier it turned out to be than I thought it was going to be, even though I wasn't really aware of why I thought it was going to be harder than it really was.
Right.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, good. And would you say that the fear and trepidation that you had, given the fact that now you've been through enough of it, has that, like, where's the fear and trepidation now?
What fear and trepidation? No, it's more like it's become this fun game. And it's like, now I know, like, because I still have a place or two where I love drinking wine, and all of my friends, we love drinking wine and sometimes lots of wine. And like, it's given me the opportunity to discover, okay, where's my edge where I can consume wine up to a point, and then beyond that, it's no longer good for my body, but up to that point it is. And so it's given me a chance to really refine that, because like, I was married to Colleen for 18 years and she saw me in all these different environments. And one of the things she used to always be blown away by is she would say some version of, it's really clear your body responds very positively to red wine in particular. Like it's an elixir for you, whereas it isn't necessarily for everyone. So that I came in with that kind of awareness and knowing, but now I get a chance to refine, okay, it's okay for me to have one or maybe two glasses, but if I go beyond that, then I'm actually venturing in some other territory and I'm probably sub-optimizing, the cancer activity that's going on and all that. So I don't know, it's been very cool to just keep refining it, but no more fear. If anything, it's just more curiosity and having fun with discovering, okay, what's next? Like, we're about to jump into the gamma point, which we've not done any of that yet. And I'm feeling like, wow, can you imagine if I had started with gamma point? I'd probably be way farther than I am. And that's not in any way meant to be like, I wish we had. It's just, this is just a great example of stuff just keeps revealing itself from the mystery of the unknown. I'll give you another example, Jake. Listening to the Dr. Q Collins podcast last week, he had some insights about cancer and about wellness around proper breathing, proper eating, proper drinking of deuterium deplete. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. I probably couldn't have heard the messages if I'd heard him, 4 or 5 months ago when I started. So it's all perfect in the way it's unfolding from my perspective.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that. And Diana, how does his experience, and that maybe he was started in a little bit of the same place, does that speak at all to
Oh,
your,
yeah, it calms me down. Yeah,
yeah,
calms down the
helps me down
trepidation.
too.
Yeah, yeah.
Me three.
And you know, the truth is, the gamma point practice, as I'm calling it, is still revealing itself. I don't yet feel like I have the whole thing, and yet I have enough of the pieces that I feel like we can start.
Yeah.
I think what, and I, you know, I don't really know anything. Where have we heard that before?
Just recently.
Just recently, yeah. I don't know exactly what the end product, if you will, is going to be. Like maybe it's just for me, or maybe it's sharing with you today, or maybe it's a book. And what I'd like to do, I'm thinking right now, is a book. I love books. I want a book, but also an online home study course where I can just lay this out, David, just like we did, piece by piece by piece. And what I'd like to do is keep each of those video segments that come along. So there'll be a video segment, and then there'll be a written segment with it. And I'm thinking to like make highlights and then do the expansive kind of talking that I like to do, so that there's both of those pieces. David was helping me understand personalities and how both of those pieces might be helpful. Anyway, I have the,
Well, I want to just put one more thing in there, and that is, I really see that a program could be created for the Lionhearts, if anybody wants to join it, and could do it in unison, kind of. There's parts of it that people can do at the same time,
Yeah.
which supports, you know, that.
you mean
Yeah, and
like,
I would say a lot of the conversations that Jake and I have been having the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks are directly pulling in some of the material that we've been covering with Merlin. It's been
absolutely,
supercharging the
absolutely.
process that
Wow.
I'm having.
Wow.
Yeah, I was telling Diana, it just fits like a glove for me.
Yeah.
Like they just, you know, and who's the glove and who's the hand, I have no idea, but it just is like
Right.
sweet fit, which is validating for me, and just fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, you mean like actually get together like this and have me lay it out in person versus a home study course? Is that what you were saying?
I don't know. However, you know, you could handle, let's say 10 or 12 people decided that they would like to do this in unison. So what would the steps be for that kind of thing?
Eh,
Whether you have them online, whether you have it like this, you know, I don't know.
I will keep an openness to that and see. I just, like I say, I don't know how or how this ends up, even if anything.
Right, right, right.
What I do
It's
know,
just it's an idea that
it's an
came.
idea, and what I know is that it thrills me to my core. And so that's what I get from it.
That's called the jet stream.
Yeah, I would just offer that this is not about the mind figuring out how to make that happen. This is
Absolutely.
about sitting with the question and seeing if the universe, seeing if the quantum field, you know, the mystery reveals anything in the short term or midterm or long term.
Right. And how much more could it be if I kept myself in a receiving place and it was literally created from the all of me, right? Did I make sense?
Yep.
No? Oh, well, so bookmark that, because we're going to talk about our design today, and I'm going to
Okay.
draw that out.
Okay.
And, let me say it in Merlin speak. What if on a third dimension, I was receiving from the fourth and the fifth, and this gamma and the Galactic Federation is a part of that because they're part of me, all of that. What if I received it versus me here on the third by myself trying to build it?
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, that's one of the most helpful principles that I learned a few years ago with Adyashanti, is that sometimes it's more valuable to sit with the question and not allow the ego mind to think it's supposed to figure out the answer.
Right.
Because when you sit with the question, oftentimes the universe delivers what's in your highest and greatest good, but you got to get out of the way and you got to be willing to receive.
Right. And that's how most of this has come so far. What I'm going to share with you today are my receivings, and they're not in order yet. And they're not. And so I tried to maintain a focus of, you guys want something specific, which is this idea of willpower. How do I do the program? How do I maintain the program for the long haul? So if I were to present this in a home study course online, I would make the videos very short, like 20 minutes, right? Because that attention span can pull that in then. And then, people can build on it at their own pace, or go back and review a 20-minute. And that's not, in my world, 20 minutes is way different than sitting down to an hour of listening or studying something. Like, I really have to carve that out. 20 minutes somehow for me, I can find pretty easily. So today, I am sure I have over 20 minutes, but if we get full and we want to pause and meet another time, we have that option. If you guys just want to, it is recorded, so you can doze out on one thing and back in another, and then pick it up on the recording. So however, just let me know as we're going through it how it is, and I will do my very, very best to present the pieces that I kind of pulled out of, it isn't quite into form yet. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have anything before and feel free to speak up, ask questions, comments, all of that, because sometimes when you say something, it inspires me to say more.
I'm just going to make the comment that you're definitely on the right track. Where I just realized the mug that I have.
Oh yeah, I love that mug. Where did you get that?
Tamara has a friend who is a ceramicist, and she's made up a whole series of these that I've got a lot of the Merlin words: surrender and breathe and synchronicity and receive and love. And so we got about 9 or 10 of them that float around the house.
Does she have a website?
Probably. I'll tell you what, I'll make a note and find out.
Okay. Yeah, I would buy one of her receive mugs.
You can request
with receive mug while I'm receiving.
Yeah. You can request any words you want and she'll make them up special for you. So like my next one is going to be reverence. Because I don't have a reverence one yet.
Yeah, or quickening. That's so sitting with me lately. And Diana, I was telling David, I think it was yesterday, that when he was talking in the deep dive about sometimes that means, like in Newtonian time, like we think these things that are going to take 6 years or 6 months or can take 6 weeks or 6 days, and I feel like that very well could happen with this material. I remember I wrote a big program called the Universal Health Method, probably 20 years ago at least. And some of that, of course, is part of what I'm doing right now. I already have that. And there was a neural pathway training tool that I really wanted to show myself this works, because doubting the doubt that has come along and is erasing. I want to say that too. It's not the same doubt that it was then. So I said to myself, I'm going to write very similar. The universal health net felt vague. It wasn't all pulled in. I didn't quite all know the pieces. And I said, I'm going to write this in 1 month and have it ready to present. And so I did my neurological path, my neural pathway training tool. And I literally worked in the garage. That's where I had my office at the time. And, you know, I spent time doing it, and it happened. I wrote that entire program in 1 month. So I
Wow.
feel something bubbling like that. Anyway, I'm not sure you needed to
Cool.
hear that, but there you go. All right. So where we want to start a little bit is just a brief explanation, and it's going to be a brief explanation of each of the systems that I show you today, because you can go more and more and more in depth. And it crosses over almost everything that you can fit in. We're going to look at a cycle today, and we're going to look at our design today, and almost these are core elements. And so everything else that we're experiencing fits in somewhere to that cycle and the core design. So
Hey, Jake,
yeah,
just a question. So when you're referring to this cycle and the core design, are you talking about the program that's being developed, or are you talking specific about Gamma Point?
I'm talking about something within the program, a way for us. So what is the point of the Gamma Point practice is so that we can experience more of ourselves while here on the earth plane.
Okay.
And so we've got to look at that design, because who is more of myself? Because most of humans walking around on the earth body, they think is them. And I'm not saying that I haven't done, I've just grown beyond that. So I'm going to try to use inclusive language, but we're all at different places of our understanding of who we are and how we are and where we are. So this idea of the earth plane, I experience gravity, I experience circumstances, I experience energy, but maybe I don't even consciously acknowledge it. So we're with the Gamma Point, part of the purpose is if I have a design that is more than just the earth experience and my past, because most people experience their past as well. If I'm more than that, what does that look like? How does it affect my earth life? And so the Gamma Point says, yeah, there is more. And if you integrate it in a conscious way, here's the whole point. You're going to be happy. I'm not promising you're going to have, you know, gold at the end of the rainbow, but you're definitely going to have the rainbow.
Mhm.
Now, what I also think is that we're going to talk about influencers right here in just a second. And we typically, we've all talked about this. Merlin has talked about it. We typically experience and then we react. This is going to be a trained in response. So that rather than reacting to circumstances in the outside, so that I basically am just a reaction of what is outside of me, I'm going to learn that there's an internal authority that now influences the outside. And so just like Merlin said the other day, there can be whatever going on this earth plane, even negative, and I'm going to have this whole system consciousness that allows me to relate to this apart from what I've done so far. And I'm going to say apart from our conditioning, what we're taught. I will say that we have a design, and we're going to talk again, this is where we're headed, but I wrote something really awesome. I said, you cannot do or seek that which is outside your design and reach the free energy Gamma Point. And so for those of us who have been, I noticed during our deep dive session, I said something about myself when I was talking that made myself small. And later before I fell asleep, the whisperings came and said, why do that anymore? Why you don't need to.
Mhm.
And so neither do we need to act outside of our design in order to be well in our body, in our relationship, and in our finances.
Say that sentence one more time. We don't need to act outside of our design in order to be well in our body, in our relationships, and in our finances.
What I mean is the entire freaking earth plane.
Yeah.
This experience will go well if I am functioning within my design. Let me show you for just, so here I go.
Is it individual designs you're speaking
Yes.
about? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. Because
Okay.
let me show you. So I'm often running on my tangents. This is not at all how I meant for this to unfold. So here we go. Let me get this out of the way. Let's see, I haven't quite figured out how my desk and chair and board work either. Okay, so if we have a ball, and I used to do classes where I'd literally take a ball and a cube with me and throw them across the floor. But if we put some momentum behind this ball, it is going to respond via its design. Everything seeks its design, right? So we've got gravity, we've got physics happening here, right? It's reminding you of your physics class. But this ball is going to move according to its design. If it tries to move like the square, which is not, good luck with that, right? And so the square is going to respond to the environment, earth plane, completely differently, right? It's going to move on the trajectory according to its design. And even if somebody came and took a hammer and smashed this, I mean, we are on planet Earth. We don't know what's happening. You know, am I going to settle into a place that is wanted or say smashed? This thing is molecularly still, it might come apart, but it's going to come apart according to its design. So everything according to our design. So let's talk about what our design is. And then once I draw that out, we'll be able to talk about, we'll put the gamma point. And what I mean when I talk about gamma point, we'll put it there. Do you, Diana, remember when Merlin asked me what I thought your gamma point was?
No.
Yeah, he did. He
Where,
said,
in a reading?
uh-huh.
No, no, I don't.
Okay.
Interesting. Can we articulate what each of our gamma point is in a short, succinct phrase or sentence, or?
You mean right now?
I know just in general, or is it always an evolving? I don't even have words for it.
Always changing. The gamma point is always moving. And that's that thing that is one of those core principles that if we understand everything is always evolving and expanding and under motion, it will be a lot easier for us because we're never going to get to and maintain gamma point. It's not going to happen. We're going to go in and out of it.
This reminds me a bit of when Merlin talked about how the universe is designed to reveal. It reveals as we evolve.
Yeah, and I think that I'm getting ready to draw out even more of that concept that you're fitting into this. So where's my paper? See if I can draw this out well. Oh, I don't know. All right, I'm doing it from scratch. So we've again got this earth plane. Here I am in my earth body. Then we've got an electrical grid that I keep talking about. People talk about the veil. I'm going to talk about that as an electrical grid. Okay, it is the interface between what I'm going to call the soul level. This is going to be our earth level. And so, and then we've got a past level, right? So in the Merlin world, we've got dimensions 1 and 2 here. We've got third dimension here, and we've got 3 and 5 right here. Just because all of us understand that.
Sorry, I was looking away. Just walk that through again. Where are they located?
This is 1 and 2.
Yeah,
This is 3.
got it. And 4
This
and
is
5.
4 and 5. And by the way, Merlin calls this a truth level. I call it a knowing. Same thing, right?
Mhm.
That knowing is not words yet. Is, you know, we're on this side of the electrical grid, no language.
Mhm.
On this side of the electrical grid, my mind, which is over here, I have a mind and a body, right? I can translate this.
Mhm.
So let's talk about influencers, because the biggest piece to maintaining anything that we desire or we want, because we're earth plane, it's two things, wanted and unwanted. And our conditioning tells us to work real hard on this third level, the earth level, to create what we want and to eliminate what we don't want. Now, what we're going to do, and again, again, just the fit is incredible. We're going to use allowing, and instead of trying to get rid of things, we're going to allow them, but seek our design.
Mhm.
There's a motion to it. So what we want is to create a momentum. If we create a momentum, and a momentum's going one way or the other with our health, right? It's not ever not moving. Just like everything. So we're either going this way or this way. And so in our avatar part, okay, let's talk about influences. So this little avatar right here and the mind are both influencers of whether or not I'm in my design. So I want to say this whole thing I've drawn out, that is the design I'm talking about. We've got all of these different parts, not just this earth part. Okay. And I won't be defining people too much on what this is. It's not a religion. It's like, I know there's more, like, well, however somebody knows that, right?
Right.
Even past people experience that difference. So all of these influencers on what's happening right here. So the mind is a big influencer. How I train myself to think, right? Like when I catch myself going, Jake, you just really made yourself small in that sentence you shared. You don't have to do that. It's
Mhm.
okay. That's me training my mind to influence me differently, right? Having said, so we've got to have some mindset tools in this whole gamma point thing,
Mhm.
because this mind, if it's given a focus, it can work for us in its influence instead of against us. And so what I mean by that is how it affects my electrical grid, right? So let's say I've got all these circuits here. So if I think a small thought, I'm literally blowing out circuits that don't allow this influence to come through and be received here. Right? So I want mind influencing these circuits on to create a better receptiveness.
Mhm.
Same thing with body, and they're out of, look out here. we've got health, relationship, and finances, and almost everything on the earth plane. I feel like I can put that into these three buckets, if you will. And I put them in order: health, relationship, and finances. Even a war that is, that's people relating, right? Finances, that's also war. But you can put almost everything in health, relationships, and finances, and all of these things influence, right? These are all earth circumstances, and they influencing me every waking hour and in my REM sleep. So what we're really doing when we're bringing in this gamma point in our whole design, we find that we begin to be able to do that thing Merlin talked about. If there is a negative or an unwanted earth circumstance happening, I can still hold a consciousness that allows me a different experience than the unwanted circumstance that's happening. I cannot do that if I'm only here on this part of my design.
Right. That's kind of like what David was saying about the wine, that there's a place where it's okay, and then there's a place where it becomes not supportive of the body.
What do you mean?
You're saying with respect to wine,
Yeah, just what he was saying before, that
like my design allows for a certain amount of wine to
Oh,
actually facilitate me having the experience of enlightenment or whatever. But if I go beyond that, then it actually is
That's why I can't write a book and say everybody can have 1 3/4 glasses of this kind of wine and maintain their avatar.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Because everybody's electrical grid is different. We've got a design, and we've got this soul level. This is the influence, which is huge, huge. And so everybody's grid is going to be different, and I might blow my electrical grid with 1 glass of wine. David might be able to have 2 and be fine. Yeah, like it's all different. So we've coming back more and more to this electrical grid, and we now have tools that allow us to turn this circuitry back on. That's the cool part. So that's going to be a part of this, maintaining the gamma point. All right, so the other influencer that we have is from past, and that gets to get cleaned up too, so that it can be a powerful influencer for keeping my circuits on instead of turning them off. We are going to learn how to hold all of these parts simultaneously, so that if there is trauma in the past, I can allow that trauma and also understand what the gift that it holds, because it's true of every single thing we've ever, any circumstance that's happened here or here, it all gets transmuted, right? So if I can allow the trauma and also allow the gift, I'm going to keep circuits on instead of the past coming up and influencing and shutting circuits off. Now, there is another influencer, which is mind and body back to the soul level. So that when I experience something, a couple of different things happen. Well, let me back up and say, so the soul level is having its response in all these levels at once. In other words, it never gets its circuitry turned off and becomes smaller because of trauma, because it's holding all of the pieces all at once. And all that does is make the whole picture bigger. And as this expands and gets bigger, because what's happened for me here, it feeds it back into the electrical grid, which shifts and changes. And the gamma point is how close I'm able to keep up with this grid and the soul level expansion. The closer I am to it, the more comfortable and happy I am, regardless of Earth circumstances. There you have it. I'm able to be in negativity and still have a consciousness of happiness, right? And that's going to fluctuate, because let's say I turn on my whole electrical grid, I do some gamma point breathing, my avatar is just in prime condition. I will, and this is the Earth benefit. I'm still going to have influencers from this level, even if I've cleaned up all of this, right? I may meet another circumstance here that makes me look at this again. So all of this is like still at play, and the Earth benefit is that this doesn't just stay together. I'm influenced again. Wanted and unwanted. Wanted is easy because it just matches here, right? That's super, super easy. But it's the unwanted that then this gets bigger, this grid changes, and how close I'm keeping up to that expansion is how well I feel. Gamma is that state of bliss, that state of knowing in every part of me that all is well. And so that's going to come and go. So your gamma point is really, where am I in this relationship between me, my electrical grid, and the expansion of the whole soul level and its directive? That also determines how well I can receive here on Earth. All of these things.
Hey, Jake, just a thought flashed in my head. Have you thought about, for the situation where someone has flipped over and they're now enlightened, do we have an experience where the soul level expands and fills the entire sort of big round circle you've got there, and their awareness is now that they are everything, they have access to everything, and there's no longer these sort of distinctions and movements from one level to the next, because they are literally, their consciousness is the whole thing?
What I'm going to tell you is that I'm going to give you my idea of it, but the point is not to give you those kinds of answers. Everybody comes to their own, you've got your own beliefs, you've got your own experience, and so those are the things, and that knowing is what's going to come through and really answer a question like that. But what I will tell you is that there's no point on helping from the Earth plane if you're in that state. And I never hear of Christ himself being in that state. The Earth benefit comes from all of these influencers, and you can really tighten this, right? Like how tight can I get this? That's going like, and if you got it tight enough where it was just almost imperceptible, right? That would look and feel like enlightened. But the Earth benefit is that we still have these influence, because if we didn't, we would have no soul expansion. This is where this plays back here. And so part of the benefit is not just becoming enlightened where I'm holding this whole thing. It's about, how do I meet Earth? And the enlightenment of it is that I close my gamma point and turn on my electrical grid. Now, we don't know, as a group of people, a collective, I mean, maybe they did this in other cultures and I don't know about it, but we have an opportunity to live closer than ever to the gamma point and experience some of these things, like, like, could you actually leave your body Diana was talking about that the other day, about different masters who, they haven't done the traditional dying. Who was it? Don Juan and
Yeah, and that Castaneda,
And Carlos Castaneda books. Yeah.
yeah, Don
Yeah,
Juan and
so
Don Gennaro, they just walked out.
yeah, so we have endless possibilities that wouldn't even occur across this cultural and past line available to us. So, but I think for those actually inhabiting physical avatars on this line right now, part of the great benefit that we give is not necessarily being enlightened. And that's why everybody's doing a great job. This doesn't matter if this is happening anyway, right? That feedback. So even if somebody is having the most suffering time ever because of the influences and how they line them up, all that, it doesn't mean that this isn't happening. The earth benefit is at work, well at work. It's working. It's never not working. It works, but they're not having a very fun time. And quite frankly, I want to have a fun time and I don't want to suffer. Now, again, in this practice, that doesn't mean that I won't have earth conditioning that don't ever cause me pain. It means that I have ways to not shut off my circuitry so that that pain can then reveal itself in the gift and I can keep up with that. So this idea of enlightenment where we have just I think that we're going to grow into more understanding of what that is. My take on it.
There was an Indian saint, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and he was able to pray to Mother Divine and create a situation where he was having darshan with her every day. In other words, she's appearing to him, they're having exchanges. Meantime, in the physical body, he has this huge cancer on his back that is growing and, causing a lot of pain. It's just like what you said, the pain was going on, but the added consciousness that he was receiving or experiencing changed his relationship to it so that he didn't care. He just didn't.
So one of the things that I did recently and that I think I am going to offer in this whole program is I made a conscious agreement to experience the earth and the earth benefit while I'm here, which means a cancerous growth or whatever it, right? Like, now how I experience that earth benefit is up to me because we've got options now. We've got options, but that earth commitment went something. So my whole life up to a certain point, well, we can't count babyhood because let's say after that point where our neural pathways get set, right? And then we're responding from that program out. You guys with me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the whole idea was to avoid pain and to somehow bring relief, if not even pleasure. And
Right.
that whole game plan is now different when I made my earth commitment consciously. Like I think I made it here at the round table, like Merlin was talking about. No, you should have read the small print, Jake, or a little better, there was some commitment, right? Before I came in a little bit of a rough landing, but I made a conscious earth commitment to the unwanted as well as the wanted. So whatever it's to be, whatever my cup holds, whatever this grander purpose is, I'm here and I'm making the commitment to it. And I am also making a commitment to the wanted. And part of my wanted is to experience the options that we have not to suffer no matter what is happening.
Yeah.
So I would pause at this point and offer each of you a time where you're sitting, where you can grok the earth conditions, the wanted and the unwanted, and make a conscious commitment to be here for both. Because when you're not fighting the unwanted and there's an allowing of it, if not even a strong commitment to allow it, I didn't say I had to like it. You know, it's not my preference. That's what makes it unwanted. That unlocks the moving forward into these next steps that we're going to. So that is an action that you both can choose to do if you like.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Merlin talking about the seeds of discontent and
Oh, yeah.
moving into agreement. And he says, when you actually move into agreement, then you will start hearing the steps to go beyond that.
Yes,
It's
that's why it hits my system so well, because there's just like this yes thing between
Mhm,
the revealings.
Yeah.
mhm.
This is also triggering for me a couple things. One, Jake, you and I had a conversation a number of weeks ago about Newtonian preferences versus quantum preferences. And the way it went in for me is that when I'm on that third dimensional plane and I'm fully in my avatar and having the earth experiences, I tend to be more identified with the mind's preferences, which is a certain field of preferences. It's not the entire story though. When I expand and I am at a higher vibrational level and I'm more consciously aware of all of who I am, soul incorporated, then there's another set of preferences that come in and they speak to me in the heart, whereas the Newtonian preferences tend to communicate through the head. And so there's been a really cool discernment process of just kind of sorting out, okay, when, like this, we using the word I love listening to people, not just in the Lionhearts, but just as I go around life, because it's amazing how we're not trained to make a distinction when we use the word I. What assemblage point are we operating from? And oftentimes we think that when we're in the mind and we use the word I, it's describing the entirety of our experience. And the truth is, that's not it. It's we're limited in a small domain of who we really are when we're saying it that way. When we expand it, now it incorporates a whole bunch of other potentially mystical and enlightenment consciousness kinds of experiences, and those preferences are, in my experience, that's when I get closer to the happiness factor.
That you just perfectly described what I'm trying to draw out here.
Yeah.
The I is more than just, what you call the ego mind, which sits right here.
Yeah.
And it's more than just the body,
Mhm.
right? Even though the body and the mind are two of the biggest influencers on my experience. But you're saying when that happens, I get bigger. And when that happens, I'm hitting my gamma point easier because I now have a different perception or a different set of preferences. And these preferences we want to talk about because we always, and I'm going to interchange the words desire and preferences as kind of the same thing. They come from us always seeking our design. So even a craving or somebody's full-blown addiction to something is them, in a sense, still seeking their design. We just never, people want to feel good and right. It's how we're designed in the whole thing. We're always reaching for gamma point. So when it comes to maintaining a momentum, and I'm going to focus on my avatar because I know what a big influencer it is. Did you catch that? That's the reason for eating the way we eat. That's the reason for fasting. That's the reason for all that we do. So that I can create momentum within my avatar that influences towards a turned on grid versus a more turned off grid. And I can be more of my full design self.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you just described the whole thing of what I outlined here perfectly. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I want to add one more piece because this was the second thing that occurred to me, especially since we're just coming off of the Easter, you know, period. I think I shared this in one of our last classes, that one of the most impactful explanation of the whole crucifixion and resurrection process that I've ever heard was from one of the Course in Miracle teachers named Gary Renard. And he first addressed this in a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. But what he was describing is that Jesus actually came through and channeled the Course in Miracles. And Gary had visitations from these non-physical entities who were disciples with Jesus. So really gave him the straight story on what Jesus's message was, and helped him to clarify all the distortions that the Bible currently contains that some people understand and others don't. But the idea was that Jesus knew that his design was going to lead him to go through the crucifixion and the resurrection experience as a way of teaching humanity some of these lessons. And what was really cool in the way that Gary described it is that Jesus had reached this place of awareness, of consciousness, where he wasn't so over-identified with the body that he got stuck in the suffering that the body was going through while it was nailed to the cross. Jesus, yes, the avatar was going through that experience, but his identity of who he really was had transcended that. So he wasn't going through the suffering that the body looked like it was going through. And then it guided him into the whole resurrection experience. It's like, okay, I have the ability to be in more than one place at one time, operate at multiple levels of consciousness. And so that just kind of kept on unfolding, and some people got what it was about and some people didn't. And here we are 2,000 years later, still trying to sort it all out.
Yeah. And some people are still going to get it and some people aren't. I'm thrilled to have two people to talk to that get it. I mean,
yeah,
so much fun to share it all together, but that is exactly what I'm talking about. And then, what are the ingredients for bringing this gamma point together so that this whole system is more consciously working? I don't stop the bad stuff from happening. I should change that, the unwanted. I'm not really sure that Jesus. I'm going to hold that point because I have a contradiction in my head about what I'm just going to say unless I explain another thing, and that's going to take me off on a tangent. So I'm just going to pause there. Thank you, David, because both of those sharings are to me, that's this drawn out.
Yeah.
And the gamma point practice that I'm wanting to bring forward is just some tools, some understandings, things that help me close this gap. Then how close can I get to it and maintain? And maybe that's within my design, right? Maybe I'm designed to vacillate this far each way. David, maybe you're designed to only vacillate this far, right? And that's your design. We don't know, but I'm pretty sure my design is not to go way out here where I lose myself.
Mhm.
And how do I know that? Because it's not my desire.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about desires and preferences and how they're a compass. It's not a thing I'm going to get. It's not a destination that I'm going to arrive at. It's simply telling me which step to take next from the unknown and from the electrical grid. What's going to create that momentum? So all of this is, we could spend a lot of time and writing and talking about each and every little piece of this, but that's what I wanted to show you today. And we'll relate that in to the how am I going to maintain the momentum of my avatar's preferences so that I'm not smashing off a lot of circuits and not able to get my soul design in here and keep up with the gamma point. So the purpose is no longer how am I going to help so-and-so heal their diabetes. The whole thing I want to do right now is how can I be of service in terms of all the training I've had in the avatar's preferences, because it's such a big influencer, to keep this on and keep a tight, close gamma point. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Si,
All right.
senor.
Yes.
I'm erasing.
Before you erase, can I ask a question about all this?
Yeah. Love it.
As we vibrate at these different, let's just call them levels. So if I'm vibrating at third level earth plane and it's all about the mind and the avatar, will I have an awareness of my design that's different than my awareness of my design when I am the whole enchilada?
Let me process that whole thing. Ask the question one more time so I get it full.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, are there multiple experiences of my design that I might have awareness of depending on how big my identity is?
Yeah, so I think what's going to happen and what's been happening for me, and when I hear the Lionhearts talk, I feel like happening for the group, is that once you bring the study and the imprint of the fullness of our design in, even when I'm experiencing something that is influencing me to throw my grid off, that would be an unwanted, right? I mean, wanted is easy. It comes through, it turns my grid on, holds the grid, like it's, you know, easy peasy. It's the unwanted and the expansion of this level that expands this, and now my grid is off until I catch up with it. I can still maintain, I can know without a, oh, this is a great lead in to where we're going, because I'm going to talk about the cycle. I'm going to draw that out next. And you're describing a certain part of that cycle. And so when I'm in a certain part of the cycle that's not as much fun as experiencing, ooh, when I catch up with gamma point, and that's euphoric, right? Do I still know that I'm headed to euphoria? Or do I use food, or do I use a substance, or do I use whatever to make me feel like I'm at gamma point? But then when I come off the substance, I can't hold that on my own. And instead of going round the cycle, I go backwards in the cycle. And it's very painful. And so then I got to self-medicate again, or I got to do something again to reach the gamma point. So once we begin this quest of turning on the circuitry and matching the gamma point, when we're going through the difficult or, you know, the not fun parts of the cycle, we now have a bigger picture about what's happening. So no, we don't ever just experience this part again. No, once you go behind the puppet show and you see it, once you know, you don't unknow. And so nothing ever happens again without the knowingness. And I did not say everything that gets comfortable then. Right. I said things are uncomfortable, but my knowingness about my place in it all is a different vantage point that allows the negative with the consciousness that still has well-being. Right? That's Merlin's words. Well, my interpretation of what Merlin said.
This is like when Merlin said that, he said that third dimension is only 1/5 of who you are.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So
we're so much more.
Yeah.
And once that knowingness, it literally, I think, starts to become alive. Why? Because it is alive. This is a real thing that influences. And here we are with Merlin saying, as we reach for the stars are reaching for us. And I didn't draw one thing out on here that I got to remember to draw out. Once we have this knowing and some tools for staying up to speed, I begin to influence the earth plane, and it's not just it influencing me. And so my earthly reality actually does begin to change. And I can look back in my past and kind of see how that happens, but I still get a little hung up seeing that in the future because I haven't completely caught up to my soul
Right,
design.
right.
But I'm looking to, the more that I bring that in with this practice, that doubt, I don't have to work on that disbelief or that doubt anymore. It resolves, it's self-evident.
So when you say the practice, I don't exactly know what that is yet, right?
That is what I am developing for the mind and body to keep this electrical grid on, to keep a close, tight gamma point. That's so now what I said. So one of those influencers die is the human body.
Mhm.
And that's why the outline of the human body, so that I can influence this process more strongly, keeping a momentum, not only of what's healthy for the body. That's why that people that close their gamma point, they're going to get well.
Mhm.
Right? Right? But unless it's soul purpose designed to experience something, so soul gets what it wants from the experience of cancer on the shoulder, right? I mean, if that's part of the design, then my earth commitment is to be here for it, but I don't have to suffer over it. But for most of us, that is not the case. I don't feel within myself a desire or a need for cancer in that way. Now, my body was off kilter when I first came to the earth plane. Huge soul purpose in that, I'm pretty sure. All the experiences that I had, which were unwanted, fed back here. And then I ended up with this grid. And the further away I was from it, the more I suffered. And as I addressed my avatar, even physically, I closed the grid because I now did I have to do all the surgeries and do I have to look like the boy that I am? Not really, but it's the influence on me and my grid is so much easier. I couldn't be happier that I did it. So we're going to what are some of the other tools that we're going to talk about? I want to share the neuro pathway training. It's not, I used to think it was to get what I want, right? And I did it like, let me do this writing in a month, and then I'm going to create this and create the, manifestation. That was it was about. Now it's about taking your neural pathways out for a run. So because neural pathways are a big influencer in this mind part over here. So we have ways to address the physical body, and that's what we're doing in that template sheet. Fuel diversity, intermittent fasting, block fasting, that whole sheet, that's what brings the avatar to light so that I'm not crashing my circuits. On the mind, there's a neural pathway tool that I want to train. There's a literal integrated body, mind, breathing, listening to a recording that I made that takes us into a brainwave state of gamma. And as I practice that, even outside of the times that my gamma point is very close, David, I begin to be able to experience what gamma feels like and have conscious contribution to the influencers, even when I'm not in the part of the cycle that just is naturally blissful or euphoric. So I'm going to share that tool if people want it. And then there's the stuff that we're talking about today, because this is the basis of this. If I just give a neural pathway tool, but there's not this understanding, there's not the understanding of the cycle that I'm getting ready to show you. It's nice and it's helped a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily consciously close the gamma point.
What I hear you saying in response to Diana's question, like she doesn't know what the program is. I'm hearing you say that you're putting together a framework with a host of tools that are designed to help us influence our assemblage point so that we begin to operate consistently from an assemblage point that closes that gap with our gamma point.
Yeah, the only thing that I would change in there a little bit is the word consistently. What I can be consistent about is that when I come out of gamma point, I have a way of consciously bringing myself back in alignment.
Yeah, yeah,
Because that doesn't stop.
yeah.
Even
This
as
is-
the enlightened could be while you're on earth, just moving. The whole birth benefit is that I'm influenced outside of my design. I'm not sure, and I would love to ask Merlin, does that happen anywhere else in the universe? That I'm influenced outside of my design? Because we're getting huge, expansive knowingness from that. And when I keep up with it, I'm blissful and happy because it's a blissful, happy place, happy spot. But when I don't, can be extraordinarily painful, this earth ride.
Yeah.
Well, something Merlin said, he said you can't make your destiny, which I'm thinking is kind of like your soul design. You can't make it go faster, but you can slow it down.
Yeah.
So, and that has to do with choice, free will, or conditioned choice, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement.
Yeah. Because destiny is the shortest distance between you and God. So in your terms, the shortest distance between you and your gamma point, right?
Yeah, I would call that kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So we can't make it go faster than that, but we can,
That's directed from here.
which we all do all the time because
we
we're
interfere with it.
conditioned and we're ignorant and we're, you know, whatever
And
we
it
are.
has as much benefit to here as if I'm in my gamma point being happy about it.
Say that again.
It has as much benefit to this level as it does when I'm in my gamma point. We don't need to be out in the suffering anymore. It's like me telling myself the other night after I said the thing I said, I think I said baby Jake or something like that. And then later I was like, I'm not a baby. I'm not a Merlin baby or anything. I don't get it sometimes, but that doesn't make me, I was like, you don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to make yourself smaller.
Right.
So same thing. We don't need to hang out here anymore, but say again, we can't necessarily make this go faster. It goes as fast as it does, but we have conscious free will to meet up with it where it is now.
No, I think what it means is that the fastest that it, how do I say that, by making the choices that move you into gamma point, it's bringing you into contact with that, the shortest distance between you and God, which is the fastest path.
Yeah, I thought that's what I was saying. Yes, we're in agreement.
Okay, right.
This kind of reminds me, Jake, of something we talked about in the last week or two when I was describing George Leonard, the founder of one of the co-founders of Esalen, and he had a martial arts dojo in Mill Valley, and he was talking to a group of people, and I was stunned by something that he said, and they asked, so like as a master in martial arts, like what is it that you're doing differently than those of us who are still learning along the way? And he said, well, the thing is, what we all have happen as a human being is we all get knocked off our center. What's true of the masters is they know how to get back grounded and on center very expeditiously, very quickly. And I think that's what you're saying, Di, is that like the fastest path between me and God is a very expeditious path.
Yeah.
And now it's my job as an earthly being to notice, okay, when do I get knocked off that? And what are the elegant and refined steps that I can take to quickly get back on that path again?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
my desire, it would be to be able to give some tangible, actual things that we could do to
Yeah.
influence this. And if we did the avatar alone, if all I did was teach people how to get their avatar alive, that would be huge.
Yeah.
But we've got some other cool tools too.
Mhm.
I think they're cool.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to offer what I have to offer. And then there are other practices. Maybe somebody is in a martial arts practice and that helps them close this gap, right?
Mhm.
It's not a fixed thing. So that's why the understanding and why getting the core principles of how I'm languaging it so we can hold it. But again, we're getting all this like from Merlin as well, right? Like this is not, I'm just saying it in my way
Mhm.
Yeah.
of,
Right,
of
right,
understanding it, but it's
right.
not anything new. It has been happening from the beginning.
It's because there's truth is truth, number one. And number two is like the rays of pathways. It's like the sun rays. There's infinite amount of sun rays, and you can take any one of those and you're gonna get to the sun.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
So
I picture Merlin as one ray,
yeah.
one path to get to understanding what we who and what we are.
Yeah. So if I get caught up here on what should I do with this information? Do I have enough of it to share? What if it doesn't help anybody? What if they don't like it? What if I don't say it right? What if they don't understand me? What if I get put in jail for saying it? I don't know why I still have that left over, but yeah, that happened to me.
Oh, that's a little past life thingy.
Right here, boys.
Yeah.
Anyway, like first of all, none of my business. That is like how this unfolds. None of my business. My business is this earth commitment that I consciously agreed to very recently. And then my desire that am I a ball or am I a block or whatever, how do I desire to move forward? I desire to move forward, closing this gamma point and sharing it with all my might. That I can tell you is truth at this moment in time. Now, the thing about desire and, how my design says move this, it's an in the moment thing, right? So that could change. I shouldn't
Okay.
get too attached, but it means head in this direction. So when I get up in the morning and I have that directive, until I have a different directive, that's now with that kind of consciousness, that turns my grid on. The influence from this level where I'm, what about this? What about that? Blah, 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 blah. Merlin calls that stinky thinky, right?
Mhm.
That turns the grid off. And I can't get here as much. And then I got to do something because it's going to give me a craving to get here. That's what a craving is. And so I can either understand this whole picture and allow the cycle of craving, which will eventually bring me here, or I can do the craving that makes me feel like this momentarily.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've gone an hour and 22 minutes. Do you want me to reveal the cycle itself? I don't think it should take that long, but how are you doing? Should we meet another time or should we reveal?
I have to go in a little bit, like maybe I have another 15-20 minutes.
Okay, let's do our best within that. I'm gonna just basically show again the blueprint of this. We'll fill in all of we don't have to fill in all of the blanks.
Mhm, mhm.
So we've got this
What are you're calling this, the cycle?
yeah, the gamma
Okay.
point cycle. I guess I'm
Okay.
gonna call everything the gamma point something or another. Just I mean, we'll see how that ends up, but just because, yeah,
Okay.
I'm calling
Okay.
it. So we've got a 4-point cycle, really. Up here is the gamma brainwave. That's, by the way, when I'm talking about gamma, I'm talking about brainwaves, right? So one of the things with this little meditation, actually, it's not a little meditation, this awesome, great big meditation that helps take us into the gamma state, we're measuring to see. Diana, I feel sure you're in your flow when you're channeling Merlin in this gamma state. So everybody experiences it, but when I say gamma, I'm talking about it. We can know what's happening for the avatar and how it's influencing that grid by seeing what brainwaves have I got going. So this feels blissful. This is your happy spot. This is a euphoric spot. We want to live there. We call it enlightened, that the master never comes out of this spot. And I'm kind of rethinking that. I think the masters is like somebody who doesn't leave it very far necessarily, but knows how to experience this. And I'll interrupt myself to say that there's a blur where we can begin to do each one of these points simultaneously. So that when I'm here in the challenge spot, what do I call that? Oh, this is the becoming. It can be difficult because I'm not it yet. Difficult. I can't do my knowing and my spelling at the same time. Anyway, sorry if I misspelled something. This can be uncomfortable, right? Why? Because I've become something. If we're relating it back to our whole design, I've become something that I'm not yet. That doesn't necessarily feel good, right? And so that's when I'm going to have a craving. That's when I'm going to want to do whatever it is I do to make myself feel happy. But if it is something I can't hold yet, and I'm using training wheels, again, no right or wrong, right? But what's going to happen, I'm going to bounce up here while I'm using it. But then if I can't hold it on my own, instead of coming over here, which is the integration and rest part of the cycle, so that this thing can stay in movement, I come back here. And now I'm more uncomfortable than ever. And if I could really influence from the earth plane, if I could get my health in a different way, my body in a different way, my mind in a different way, if I could meet the love of my life, if wars would stop, if I had the money that I wanted, if I could have some earthly thing that made me feel this way, I start to go after it when I become uncomfortable and make it happen, instead of use my whole design. And simply, as David put it, my job is to close the gamma point, which sometimes means hanging out here and waiting for the shift. That's maybe what Merlin was meaning too. I don't know, Diana, but you can't push this. You can close the gap to be a little bit more comfortable here, but you spend the time in this cycle that it takes.
Yeah. I think it was in my reading about the grip and releasing the lava that he introduced this idea of you can't speed up how fast you make progress, but you can slow it down. And we interfere with it by gripping too hard instead of releasing and letting go and surrendering to the natural.
So that
process.
releasing the grip, I call allowing. We allow, and we're going to talk about sometimes just the whole practice is to allow the difficulty.
Mhm.
It never lasts. It never lasts. The hunger in a fast never lasts. It always leaves. Even if I'm on my second day and I'm going to go 5 days, it comes and it goes. Well, there's a whole idea that I can draw out there, but I won't today. So let's see, we've got gamma point, the blissful point. This is when people also call this flow. Like that's a common terminology that people are talking about today. Like you get your snowboarders that are coming down crazy mountains and they're in a flow of doing athletic, crazy impossibilities. Like if you see what they're doing. So we're going to be able to do the impossible in the gamma state. We're already seeing it doing it. And they do that when they're in the flow. When they're not in the flow, they crash. And it's okay. There's not right or wrong. That's, you know, that crash causes an expansion. And then that expansion creates a larger electrical grid. And then I get to choose how close I'm going to live to that expansion. So what happens here is this expansion piece. This is where, because of this getting bigger, after my integration and my rest, which just happens naturally, I get the new idea. And interestingly enough, it feels like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not there yet. I've still got to do the journey. So let's talk real quick about some ideas about how to do the journey. And then we'll pause for today or for forever or for no time or like whatever you got. So how do I live a lifestyle that allows me to provide my avatar and my mindset, but we're talking about avatar right now. How do I create the momentum that keeps it closer to the gamma point, which also creates wellness, right? That's an added benefit.
Mm-hmm.
One, where did I write these out? I thought I wrote them out.
Jake, say that sentence again. How do I create the, was
Yeah.
it circumstances
A
or
lifestyle.
the lifestyle?
And then what did he say after that?
I think
That's
it
as far as
allows
I-
us to close the gap
Okay.
with our gamma point.
He doesn't know what he said.
Right. Uh-huh.
I don't see where I wrote this down. All right, we're going off my.
Jake, this is really good because it's there's some alchemy in here that it's like when Merlin transmits, when you speak and you're in your jet stream, and so the alchemy is coming out. It's assisting me. I'm sure it's assisting David. Things are changing already in there.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so helpful to me. So helpful to me to hear that. And I love this idea of the jet stream, right? Because we're in that jet stream, we're in the flow. That's another way to say within this system, within this closing in on that gamma point. And Di, you remember how we were talking on the phone and we were talking about free energy, quantum energy, and about the willpower and about moving into, it's like a gravitational pull. It's not hard when you're being escorted by the jet stream. And that's the ultimate thing here. So what I'm going to preface all of what these little steps that we can do for an appetizer. Spell momentum. Momentum. Does that work?
Yes.
That works.
Okay. So momentum, either going one way or the other. And what we want is a momentum towards the closing or the closer to-ness, the increasing proximity to the gamma point. So a part of that is providing the avatar with its preferences, because it has a design. David's is a little different than mine. Mine is a little bit different than Diana's. Yeah, right? So what my preferences are going to be a little bit different. And so we've got to have a system that allows all that. But there are some core things. And so one of the things we're going to learn, but not today, is how do I know which way my momentum is going? Right, David? That's kind of that session that you and I had. How do I know if my program's working?
Yeah.
You know, and
No,
so
what's cool about this is I'm realizing as I reflect back on now, whatever it's been, 5 or 6 months, what you're describing has been the ongoing process that we're doing. And it's so cool to now have, like, okay, look behind the curtain and see what we've been doing.
yeah, you know, I mean, there's no way without stopping to take the separate time to do it like this that I could ever do that and do what we're doing for the avatar at the same time. It just too much.
Yeah.
But okay, so one is we're going to learn to do the uncomfortable or the difficult. And I'm just going to read this because I said it so well somewhere. Difficult and comfortable do not always mean I don't want to. Easy and comfortable and ecstatic do not always mean I want to. So we want to learn to sort of look at the end result. And is that a place that's going to push my momentum towards gamma?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to take a cold plunge. Sometimes I don't want to fast. Sometimes I think I do want to eat a bear claw. So I want to look at the end result. And is that, where am I in my cycle? What is that, a craving? Or is it an ABA, an antibody effect, or ABE? And I'm going to tell you guys what that is. I'm going to talk really fast and speed up because I know Diana has to go. So we need to rethink, do I want to do it or what do I don't want to? And I want to encourage us only always from now on to do things we want to do. So if I decide to take that cold plunge, I don't want to do it saying, I don't want to do this, but I have to because my avatar, because I want.
It's good for me.
Yeah, because it's good for me. Throw that out. I want to do it because I want the end result. I want to increase my momentum to where I'm going. And otherwise, don't freaking bother taking the cold plunge.
Yeah, this was a really instrumental conversation you and I had 6 or 7 weeks ago, where I realized my A+ student had been kicking in thinking there's a perfect way of doing the program. And when you gave me permission to recognize that planet Earth is not about perfection, planet Earth is really about experimenting and exploring and being curious. And all of a sudden, it's like this whole weight dropped off of my being. It's like, okay, I don't have to do it perfectly the way Jake described it last session. I can F up, and I can well, the way I like to put it, like sometimes I'll go off the reservation and I'll veer from the program this week. And sometimes that feels really good. But what I get to see is I get to see what's the impact on the metrics that we're using to assess my body's momentum and which direction. And I can see directly, it's like, oh shit, every time I make that choice and I go off the reservation that far, my momentum goes in the wrong direction. And then I get to update, what do I want to do the next time? And so it's like, it's been a really cool learning process.
The next time is important because what I said to you, I think the first time that ever happened or whatever, this is actually more beneficial.
Yeah.
The choice that you made, because you expanded this part in a way that you wouldn't have if you made the other choice. And now you're bigger because of it. And there is actually a stronger call, because this is a calling. right? You can't really shut it off. And if you're not going to move with that jet stream, you've got to do something to numb it out.
Oh, wow. I just felt that whole discussion about the gravitational pull, it's innate.
Yeah.
It's innate.
Yeah.
We just, I think, what did Merlin say? He said, you just learned not to pay attention to it. But the
Right.
gravitational pull is there.
It
Yeah, to feel
exists.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the other thing I want to say about number one, learn to do the uncomfortable and the difficult. One of the other things that Jake revealed to me is that what's uncomfortable and difficult for me is different than it will be for you, Di. Like, I'll give you, for instance, Tamara can't possibly imagine fasting. The most she's ever fasted was 18 hours before a colonoscopy. And her programming and all her stuff is wired where she has to eat. And fasting for me came so easy. I remember the first 5-day fast. It was like,
I hate you.
Wow. but I realized that's just because that's the way I'm wired. It came
Wow.
so easy to me, but also I
Wow.
felt so good
Yeah.
each day that I went into it. It was like it just reinforced, okay, that's not a place that's difficult for me, but there's another place that is difficult for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So this is the gravitational pull.
Yeah.
And the more we get it going in the direction, the easier things get.
And there's something in there also, Jake, about the assistance that comes from the unknown. When you start aligning, then there's this.
Yeah. That was the influencer. That's what I
Okay.
call the influencer.
Okay.
From soul level to mind
Okay. Got
via
it.
the electrical grid.
Right.
Right? Because all molecules have to assemble themselves in some fashion. That comes from a template. It's energy before it's matter. Okay, number 2, have your cake and eat it too. So where it direct 180-degree turn here. I've been told my whole life this isn't possible, and it upset me deeply every time. I think because I believe there's not a cake shortage, people. Have your cake and eat it too. So this is where you are going to find foods. Now we're talking specifically about again, staying on the program, if you will, enough to keep your momentum headed in the gamma point direction. This is where you want to become a master at exchanges. I don't eat the bear claw, but there's a grain-free keto option that makes me just as happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unbelievable how many choices we have at this moment in time, and how those choices are increasing at least once a day. I want my food I put in my mouth to knock my socks off.
Yeah. I'll give you a quick example. Last night, I had a hamburger. And the reason I was able to have a hamburger, because up to this point I've been giving up the buns, but I found a keto low carb recipe for making hamburger buns. And I made them, and I had a hamburger with Tamara and some of our friends last night. And it was like, oh, thank God, one of my joys in life is to have a burger without just doing the lettuce wrap.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. There's also a company called Unbun, because
I have the Unbuns. I find at least their sliced bread, to me, it's a little bit too much like cardboard. There's just not a lot of flavor, and it doesn't have the texture I like. But this hamburger bun, it was pretty darn good.
It's really important.
Send the recipe, would you?
I will.
This is important to note, because here's where we're all unique as well. I might do okay with an unbun, but I have a different client that eats a keto grain-free bread. I can't stand. And I have to tell you that, when did I start this? 10 years ago or something like that. Back then, there wasn't a keto craze, right? We didn't have all of these companies like Simple Mills, Siete, Unbun, like there's so many. you got to read labels, right? You got to read all the labels, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what am I saying? Oh, I wanted bread. I've been a bread carbohydrate eater my whole life. That's what takes me into gamma. I love it. Take it away from me. And if you turn it into like yeast bread or some kind of the cinnamony thing, like, okay, so I was going to make bread come hell or high water, as the saying goes. And I threw out 6 flatbread recipes before I ever got one that I went like, oh, okay, this is going to create some fulfillment and satisfaction in me. And it's going to increase my momentum in the direction where I go. So even though it's not a yeast bread roll or whatever, it's fulfilling me and making me happy because I've got a bigger picture that it's also taking me in this momentum, and I'm feeling better and better and better. All right. Di, how are we doing? Have a couple more minutes. You got to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do want to ask you that question. How do I get the measurements that I'm doing to you? Do I just say them in Voxer, or do I text them? How do you want to?
So basically there's a button you can text via Voxer or push the button and talk. So just text it via Voxer.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to want to know is what you measured and what the measurement was. Because if you just give me numbers and I don't know what it's related to, I can't process the data.
Okay.
So this is the Auntie-Betty effect.
But it
is the Auntie-Betty effect.
Like Aunt
This
Betty?
is where our dear Auntie Betty is transitioned on at this point, I think at the age 94, 96, something like that. She was a part of my hula halal. And she was also this amazing hostess and cook and gracious. And I remember one time at hula camp, we were all sitting around and there was a whole group of us that were doing this no sugar for 2 weeks. And then you eat sugar and then you use applied kinesiology to check different systems. And so anyway, it was a protocol that we were doing. And there were people around the table that was doing it with me as I did it. Anyway, we're sitting at this picnic table out on Ahola Beach, and we'd finished for the day, the whole thing. And Auntie Betty drives up with one of her infamous, and I kid you not, infamous Lilikoi cakes. And somebody else brought out a bottle of red wine, and the moon was coming up and the ocean was gently lapping, and we had this hula experience together, and the gamma was starting to happen, and we all looked at each other and just grinned and took a piece of cake, and we were pouring, I don't know what we were even pouring the wine in, like it was just, and so then the next day, everyone came into my office to get their sugar points reset so we could start over. Not one person lost their sugar set. Not one from drinking shitty wine. David, I know you probably wouldn't have even touched it, but we were in gamma point, and I don't even like wine, and it was magical. And this sugar cake that should have been extremely bad for the avatar and wasn't. This does not happen all the time. As we learn to stay closer to gamma point, we may have, I'm not there yet. And so just don't fool yourself here, thinking you're in gamma and going to transcend it, and you're not. These are right now, I don't know that it will always be this way, but right now they are rare, magical moments. I don't know that it's going to stay rare. It will stay magical.
Yeah. And I've had this a few times with wine. And then I've had the opposite where like I went off the reservation, and I can tell you the two things that just kicked my butt were at Tamara's birthday when I bought her the most amazing coconut cake I've ever had with the creme anglaise sauce. And it's one of those where you take the first bite and you're like, oh shit. this is the best taste I've ever had in my life. And
Going down.
I have to keep eating. And then my other one is there's a brand of gelato that you can buy in a lot of grocery stores, including Whole Foods, called Talenti.
Yeah.
And so for Tamara's daughter's birthday 2 weeks ago, we had 4 different flavors of Talenti ice cream, and I just went to town on this ice cream. My ketone levels were freaking hammered and set back. It took me, I think, 4 days to finally start to turn the
Well,
corner.
that's partly how we're going to know with these momentum measurements that we do, whether it was an antibody experience or I just went for it anyway, which is number 4, about 1 time per quarter. Do whatever the hell you want 1 time per quarter for most people. And some of us are going to be able to do it more often. Some of us are going to be able to do it less often, right? But you can once in a while go to Disneyland, eat the Disneyland cupcake, have chipmunk breakfast, like whatever it is you're doing, and not upset your momentum.
Mm, 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 mm.
So these are a little appetizers of starters for creating momentum, which is free energy, effortless, to keep the avatar on a program within its preferences that then keep your electrical grid turned on, which then allows a larger receiving from soul level, and that is a close gamma point.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Ta-da!
Yeah, I just wrote something that kind of captures what you said, and that's that as we learn to stay closer to gamma point, the avatar will more frequently transcend the usual cause-effect relationship.
Ah,
Yeah, and that's that conversation, David, we had where this whole thing, and Diana, this conversation that Merlin had with us about doing the magical or the non-ordinary or the, what do you call that? The miraculous happens.
mhm.
But right after the miraculous comes the understanding it's now once integrated in our cycle, and we rest after that. And then the new idea, I wake up and what was miraculous becomes ordinary.
Mhm.
Until the cycle repeats.
Right. That's that the revelations.
Yeah.
just keep coming. Yeah. And it's like, are we meeting them? Are we meeting those revelations?
Well, we're reading them to the extent that our
Not reading, meeting.
we're meeting them. Same. You got to read them to meet them. We're meeting them to the extent that our electrical grid is on, and allowing the revelation to come through.
Yeah. Yeah, when we're in that expanded state, we have a different experience of what ordinary is, and what used to be miraculous, like you said, is now ordinary. That's a cool place to live in.
That's a cool place to live in. Yeah. That's where my compass keeps pointing.
Yeah.
So, and not everybody's compass is going to point. I mean, it's so exciting to me. I just can't understand it. Why, everybody's compass doesn't point to the same, my idea of fun, but have it.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome. And you guys can let me know, like, this is the main piece that's going to help you, that instead of willpower, remember I made the analogy that willpower is when you're starting an old Volkswagen, right? The battery's died, you got to start it. You got some guys that are going to push you, and you pop the clutch. You've got to have something that takes you on. So willpower is the guys pushing. It may get you started, but it's not going to drive you from Kapa'a to Anahola. No, it's not. Those guys aren't, I don't care how big and how Hawaiian they are, they're not going to push you the whole way, right? So momentum is your car starting, where now it's free energy that takes you. So
it reminds me of when Merlin talked about the mind using the will, or the will using the mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know exactly where we would go next. Well, I could show you some of the other tools, I guess. So you guys let me know kind of where and how and what you want to do from here. And then we'll individually keep your avatar templates moving up so that we get to learn and unfold what it feels like and what the body's preferences are. And so that's separate templates, and we meet every 2 weeks for that. In terms of what we did today, I guess I'm going to kind of wait for feedback from you guys on what we all want to do next.
Cool.
I continue.
This was awesome, Jake. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So awesome.
Very
so helpful. So energizing. Like I feel the alchemy present, and I'm receiving it. I'm not opposed to it in any way, just receiving it.
You're in agreement, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's a high frequency, and a high frequency always elevates those lower doubts, or those, oh, I can't do that, or whatever. This is just like picking it up and going.
Well, which blesses me, because it helps me not allow those lower doubts, which I still have, and get to allow and not self-medicate them or numb them, but know they are carrying me to the jet stream, to the gamma. And if I just allow it, it will be.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you for this. It was most helpful to me more than anyone else, I'm positive.
Cool. Love you guys too.
Love you guys.
Have an awesome rest of the weekend. And Jake, I'll definitely process. Okay, where do I want to go next? I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, sounds
Cool.
perfect.
All right, guys.
Love you guys.
Love you
Bye.
too. See you soon. Oh, and I'll send you the recipe.
Yes.
Please, yeah.
In fact, there's two different versions of it, like the keto low carb hamburger buns. I'll send you both of them.
Perfect.
Right.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Adios.